goosebumps every time, yeah, 713. Through the 281, yeah, I'm riding. Why they on me? I'm flying, slipping low-key. I'm slipping low-key and hiding. I get those goosebumps every time. Come around, you ease my mind. You make everything feel fine. Worry about those comments. I'm way too numb, yeah. It's way too dumb, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time. I need the hype, throw that to the side. I get those goosebumps every time, yeah. When you're not around me, throw that to the side. I get those goosebumps every time.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Loaded Mag NUFC. You can see that we're smiling right now. We definitely were not on Sunday evening, but look, it's international break, chance to have a look at things, having a couple of days rest from football, and we will get back into it with two very special guests to talk all about it and more. But first of all, Daz, Chris, how are you on this fine Wednesday evening?
Good to me. Yeah. I'm off tomorrow, actually. I'm off tomorrow. So yes, nice one there. And I was just having a quick chat with Jack beforehand. He was telling me about the sights and sounds of London. Maybe I'll have to visit it again sometime. I've only ever been there for 2 days on one trip, so maybe you never know. You never know what will happen. Chris, how are you?
I'm all right, mate. Yeah, I came home from London yesterday. I feel like I live in London sometimes. But no, mate, I'm all good. Yeah, really, really busy day in work. But aside from that, and aside from Newcastle United, I am all good. But really looking forward to having Jack and Lee on. It's always a treat having Lee back on Loads of Mag NUFC. And obviously, it's great to welcome Jack as a debutant. So yeah, very excited to meet Jack. But Pete, how are you doing, mate? You good?
Yeah, all good. Yeah, cannot complain. Nice to have a break from football after madness of the last week or so. Those last two games, but of course we will always talk about Newcastle United because this is what we are here for. And look, ultimately we've got two fantastic guests that we'll welcome on now. So look, as you've mentioned previously, it's a pleasure to welcome back Lee Davey. Sounds weird saying his surname, Lee Davey.
Welcome back, bro. Welcome back, Lee.
Hey, can you hear me all right, guys?
Yeah.
Hey, how you doing?
Yeah, good. Good. Great to have you back.
First time on as a European champion too. So, and also, just makes me cast my mind back to that night at St. James's, and I've got to say, it was worth it all. It was worth it, every last second of it.
Absolutely, you were there up in the gods.
I was up in the gods. I was.
Look, we'll get into that definitely. We'll talk a little bit more about that as the show goes on. But making his debut, it's an absolute pleasure to welcome in someone that you know quite well, Lee, as well. You've had some involvements with him before, and it's he's making his debut from talkSPORT, journalist and Newcastle United fan, as he's told us very clearly his thoughts on Newcastle United before we came on. It's Jack Cunningham. So welcome on, Jack.
Welcome, Jack.
Evening, lads. How's doing? You good? Pleasure to be on. Thank you very much for having me on. Really appreciate it. I was watching all the guests go on the intro thing. I was like, well, I'm a bit adequate about them. Not on their level.
Never. You're always welcome, and all our guests are as great as each other. This is the great thing about having this channel and being able to speak to so many different like-minded fans of football and as well Newcastle United fans. So, boys, it's a pleasure to have you on, and we've got a fair bit to talk about in lots of different directions. So we'll get straight into it. We're not going to mess around too much on it. But look, Jack, I want to get your early thoughts, and Lee as well, actually, from a different perspective on Newcastle United. As I mentioned, it's not been a good week, a good 7 to 10 days as a Newcastle United fan. Back-to-back defeats in the Premier League, West Ham away, Brentford away. Not only have we had 2 defeats, but it has had us sliding down the Premier League table, where we currently sit 14th after 11 games. Not exactly where we wanted us to be. There are lots of question marks on a number of things that we'll get onto right now. But Jack, that game on Sunday, not good from our eyes, and we've been very vocal on that on Loaded Mag NUFC. What were your thoughts on the game, just in general, watching it, seeing the performance, the result? What did you make of it all, mate?
Yeah, I thought the first half was just two terrible teams sort of attempting to try and play football, and then there was just one moment of quality from Harvey Barnes, great turn, great finish from Barnes, and then you're kind of hoping, okay, Newcastle can build on this and push on and get a second goal, because it's all it would have needed. Another goal, and that game was over. I don't think Brentford were coming back into it. Even at the start of the second half, I mean, Brentford seemed to offer nothing, but then from one long throw, Nick Pope, absolutely, total error from him. And then Botman's also at fault as well. And from that point onwards, it was a bit of a struggle. But I thought the main issue was Byrne. As soon as he got the yellow card, he needs to come on. I don't know how he stayed on, and especially for that penalty, which, by the way, I don't know how it was given as a dive initially. That is a terrible. It was never a dive. It was either not a penalty or a soft penalty. But it was not a dive. And the fact that he kept the yellow card after was insane. They looked at it, said, checked it, and went, yeah, you've still got the yellow card as well. Made no sense. But as soon as that happens, Byrne needs to come off. Yeah. I was begging, pleading at the screen. I was like, just get him off. Like, it's so obvious that it's going to cause problems for us. And unfortunately, it was too late. And when Lewis Hall did come on, he created a massive chance at the end, where it was some fantastic defending by Rico Henry. Stops Alanga scoring his first goal, although Alanga might have missed, to be fair. But still, given the start he's had. But I just felt like it was a game too far for some players who have been brilliant for Newcastle, and Eddie Howe has kept loyal with them, and rightly so kept loyalty with them as well, because they've never let us down. But if Newcastle are going to try and change the style, which is what they're clearly trying to do, because I had to look at some interesting stats where we've been outworked 8 out of the 11 games this season in the Premier League, which is fine if you're dominating the ball and creating chances, which we are at home, but we're not away from home. And players like Byrne, Joelinton and Pope, probably the main three, I don't think they can play possession football. I think they're there for the blood and thunder pressing style of football that we have been able to do. We can't do it anymore when we're playing 3 games a week. So we have to change. That's fine. But it's probably time to move on from Byrne, Pope and Joelinton as starters, in my opinion.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's been a really sort of difficult spell. We have got a bigger squad this season, but it just doesn't seem to be utilised as well as it should. Now we do have to recognise that with the Byrne situation, it is difficult with regards to the fullbacks. Obviously, Hall has just come back from injury. Tino is coming back from injury, so it has been difficult from that point of view. But performance-wise, really, really not good. From an outside perspective, Lee, I know you've been keeping a little bit of an eye on Newcastle United. I don't know if you managed to get there or catch the game against Brentford. But what have you made of Newcastle United this season? Is there any sort of differences, anything that you're noticing differently in comparison to previous seasons as to why the performances haven't been as good, especially in the Premier League?
I don't know if it's a case of anything differently, but actually following a pattern. And that pattern is of the 23-24 season, the Champions League, the first Champions League season after the return. And I think it's important to note just how important Champions League football is to this club and just how important it is to these players. There is so much energy expelled on these Champions League nights, and it feels like there's a bit of a hangover. And again, from the outside, giving this opinion because I know you guys are completely on the pulse when it comes to Newcastle, a lot more than I am. But what it does feel as though there's a different energy about these Champions League nights, and then it feels a little bit flat going into these games that follow. It's almost kind of like, it's the main event, it's the big stage, and then trying to get yourself up for a Brentford. Now, a few days later, it seems to be a bit of a problem. This is now, look. That shouldn't be an excuse. These are professional footballers. They should be able to go out and perform again, 3-4 days later. Because ultimately, if you don't win the Champions League, then you're not going to be back in the Champions League next season. And that's ultimately the issue here. I think Newcastle finished 7th, didn't they, that first season?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
they were in the Champions League, and they just missed out on Europe, didn't they? Because United won
Yeah.
the FA Cup. I think I'm on the right lines here.
Yeah, you're
right.
right.
So, but whereas last season it was, it was all blood and thunder. But what I would say is that I don't think Newcastle is great starters to the league season anyway. But what they do have, they have the ability to build momentum through the Christmas period into January, February. And if it's a team that can go on a run, pick up a run and win game after game after game, it's Newcastle can do that. So whilst it's not been a great start, I don't, they've not been cut adrift, and there's still time to build. Touching on what you said, Pete, I think what key factor is losing your two fullbacks. So when you've got Hall and Livramento, it is absolutely, when you look at the fullback, the modern fullback now, and just how important they are, not just defensively, but in when you're building attacks. And I have to go back to PSG because they've just lost Hakimi and Nuno Mendes, and just watch the difference in that team now. In terms of the way they attack, it's completely different. But you've lost speed, and then you just look at who's covering. Dan Burn, look, Dan Burn's been fantastic. For Newcastle, he's playing well above his station. But as a left back, you can see the limitations. Kieran Trippier, 34, 35. That speed, that intensity now is not there in his legs, and it makes a difference. It does make a difference. So it's obviously Baltimore's been great, but it's going to take him time to build up that natural instinctive understanding with Anthony Gordon, with whether it's Murphy or whether it's Alanga. This is going to take time, guys. There's been a huge shift losing Isak and losing those fullbacks, and they're key elements of the team. So I didn't watch the game against Brentford, but I think the best is going to come from Newcastle. I just think it's a bit of a shaky start. But in terms of the Champions League, and I will say this, I do think, and I'm going to go on record and say I think Newcastle will be the English team that goes the furthest in this competition.
Ooh,
Wow. Okay.
Lee, do you think we have a victory on the 28th of January? Yeah.
That will depend on if PSG are qualified or not. That will depend. I do believe so. But with if you'd have asked me a few weeks ago, with PSG winning 3 out of 3, then they lose to Bayern, and then they've got a bunch of injuries to key players. Mendes, Achraf Hakimi, Ousmane Dembele, Desiree Doué, 4 really key players. Now there could be a few drop points in the next few games. If that keeps going and, they need a win on the last day, that's going to set it up brilliantly. But I will say there's a good chance that going into that game that Newcastle are above PSG in the table. There's a really good chance that could be the case. So, I think it's going to be interesting. I don't know how it's going to be set up, but it potentially could be a really frantic game and something where there certainly could be something riding on it for both teams. So it could be interesting, but we'll see. There's only 4 match days. We're only halfway through, but it's going to be an interesting one, I think.
Yeah, definitely. You both made some really good points, lads, with regards to the team at the moment. And look, that's Chris, I'll come to you on this one. Is it have we overlooked the fact that our 2 main best fullbacks haven't been available? Jack made reference to it. Hall comes onto the pitch and creates arguably our best chance of the game, other than the goal that we actually scored. Tino Livramento was being talked about as one of the best fullbacks in the Premier League at the time that he gets injured against Arsenal. Regular in the England squad, would have been in this England squad as well on the back of it. Have we overlooked that, as not just us as a panel, but as a fan base, of how key that is to the way in which we attack and the way in which we play football? It hasn't really been something that people have talked about, only recently when we've known they've come back. So what do you make of that, boys?
Yeah, we have touched it on loads, because I know we said that with the pace that they offer, and they're up and down the wings, and they're interlinking with the wingers as well, and it brings the best out of our wingers in Gordon and Alanga and Murphy or Barnes, wherever the case may be. But so we have made reference to it, and I think recently as well we made reference to it with Lewis Hall being back. That's what we're calling for. Let's start him. He got some minutes, but now let's put him in. And then it kind of led on to Eddie won't drop Dan Burn. Dan Burn has been excellent as centre back. We said that, but as left back, we know he's not up to playing that position anymore, and he does bomb forward as well, but then it's getting back as well, and it's an easy. It's easy to identify our weak link, I guess, for the opposition. So, and I'm just going to jump in with something else, people, because we're aware that we're not putting any comments on the screen. They're not actually coming into the studio first. We know what the problem is. We can't fix it because it would mean stopping the show. So what we are doing is we're looking at the comments on YouTube. So we'll make reference to any questions that come through there later in the show. So just so you guys know in the chat.
Chris, your thoughts on it? Have we overlooked those fullback situations? But also, Lee made the point about Voltemeda. He's had a fantastic start in terms of goal scoring up until maybe the last few games where he's gone a little bit quiet in front of goal, albeit not very many chances created for him. Do we need to be a little bit more patient with this team? Are we asking a little bit too much of Newcastle United at the moment, or are some small sections of the fan base are starting to make a little bit of noise out that they're expecting us to be much, much better than what we currently are?
Yeah, no, I think it's fair, mate. I mean, me personally, I would expect us to be performing far better than what we are. We know that Dan Burn isn't, a natural left back. We know he's played there previously, and obviously as he's getting a little bit older, as Lee mentioned earlier, his legs probably aren't the same as what they were maybe 5-6 years ago when he played there for Brighton. He has played for us, in the last couple of years at left back, but you see the big difference when Lewis Hall came in or when Tino Livramento came in and played so well at left back. For me, I am disappointed with the start of the season. I reflecting after that Brentford game, which obviously was really disappointing and yet another poor performance. I am hopeful that things will change. Nick Voltemada, I've been really impressed with him since he's come in. But he is a different striker to Alexander Isak. That is clear and obvious to see. But at the same time, for me, I'm looking and I'm going, what? We've played 10, 11 games in the Premier League, and obviously we've played 4 Champions League games, not to mention cup games. Nick Voltemada has been a big part of that. And so for me, in order for us to try and find a way to utilise him and get the best out of him, we should be doing that by now. I actually think the fullbacks are clearly, a big concern. Kevin Trippier, again, as Lee said earlier, isn't the same player. Time is ticking on. And really, you would like to see Tino Livramento make that right back position his own. But I'm also looking and thinking, well, I'm wanting more from the midfield, like the midfield three. They've been lauded in the past as being arguably one of the best, if not the best, midfield three in the Premier League. And I just think that something's not quite clicked, this season, whether that be Joe Linton, maybe, getting found out in this new tactical formation that we're playing, because we know Joe Linton is very robust. He's a player who gets about the pitch. He puts himself about, which is great, but we're trying to be more of a possession-based team, and we need technical players in there. I think you mentioned it on the last show, Pete, that, you would like to see Jacob Ramsey being integrated into that midfield three, and maybe that's part of the evolution. And don't forget as well, boys, which we haven't mentioned, we've got Johan Visser on the cusp of, coming into the Newcastle team, yet to see him in a black and white shirt. I'm sure he will make a big difference too. But the final thing I'll say as well is a big one. And again, we've mentioned it a lot recently. It's Anthony Gordon. I thought this season would be a big breakout season for Anthony Gordon, and I think he's been really disappointing. Obviously, he seems to be turning up for the Champions League games, which for me is a little bit worrying in the sense that, is he turning it on and off like a tap? He needs to perform week in, week out. So that's been disappointing from my point of view. And I won't touch too much on Nick Pope, because although he's had a really good season, we've said on this channel for a while, haven't we, boys, that we acknowledge that, we do need a new number one. We do need someone to come in and eventually replace Nick Pope. So lots of different reasons, but I think fullbacks are part of it. But for me, I would say it's probably been the central midfield and Anthony Gordon. They've been the ones that, have really disappointed me this season so far.
Absolutely. And with Anthony Gordon, what I found really interesting is in the last couple of days, there is a lot of talk now of Anthony Gordon not making the World Cup squad, which I found quite interesting. Obviously not in the England squad due to injury, but now there's a conversation around, Rashford being ahead of him. is it a case of Grealish being picked ahead of him? Performances now, whereas before he was close to being a guaranteed starter, now being talked about as, definitely not a starter, will be lucky to make the squad. So you can see his performances have been poor, particularly in the league already this season. It's now starting to have ramifications for him later on in the season, and particularly in the summer. If he doesn't make that World Cup squad, it would be down to him and down to him only, because his performances haven't been good enough, nowhere near good enough. Is that your mindset, Jack? Are you're the same in terms of Anthony Gordon? These boys know I've been saying it for a year.
Yeah,
I got coaches last year. I keep saying it. For saying that Anthony Gordon was nowhere near the level, and people are sort of starting to say it now. Have you noticed the same?
no, I've been disappointed Gordon for a while. I think if you go back to last summer, so summer of 2024, when Newcastle were desperate for PSR and there was the talk of him going to Liverpool, he came back from, and obviously his Euros was disappointing, wasn't it? Because Southgate never played him and what have you. So I get that. And before that season, by the way, he was probably the best left winger in the Premier League that season, the 23-24 season. He was unbelievable. So understood why he was annoyed there. But he comes back and we start the season. We weren't very good at the start of last season either, but his performance was so far below what we'd seen the year before. Then he signed a new deal and he had 3 months where he was electric. 2 goals in the Carabao Cup semi-final, one at the Emirates, one at St James's Park to help Newcastle get through the final, scored against Tottenham, scored against Aston Villa, got assists in other games. He went on a really, really good run of contributing in games. Then he gets the red card against Brighton, right, which was stupid. Rules him out of the cup final. Obviously, again, whatever, he's disappointed. Newcastle win the cup final. We wouldn't have got there if Gordon hadn't have been involved in the semi-final. So, of course, he played his role massively. And he comes back, and Howe even changes the formation to a back three with Murphy at wing back, Gordon on the left, Barnes on the right, just because Barnes was in such good form, but just to get Gordon back in the team. And in the end, what it did is it killed Barnes's form, because Barnes was playing electric on the left, and Gordon did nothing. And then at the start of this season, Premier League, I don't think he's played well in a single game. Champions League, really good. He's one of the he's like the second top goal scorer, 4 goals. It's ridiculous. But what worried me was after the Benfica game, which was his best performance by a long, long way, where he said that he gets up for these Champions League games. Like that's what really motivates him. And I understand that, because as a fan, that's obviously what's motivating me as well. But you have to be able to get motivated, as Lee mentioned, for these Premier League games, because otherwise we're not going to be in the Champions League next year. And then you're going to be coming to the club saying, I want to leave, Champions League football. Well, we haven't got Champions League football because you haven't been playing well in the Premier League. You can, as much as you can, Howe's got questions answered, of course he has. But Gordon is one who really disappoints me. And Harvey Barnes in the last 2 games, as much as Barnes has got his critics, and I get his critics because he's not involved in the overall gameplay, nowhere near as much as Gordon. Of what he does is he delivers in the final third. Every single game he plays, he at least creates a chance or he has a shot. He does something. In his last 2 games, he's got an assist and a goal from nothing. Nothing really. The goal came out of nothing. That is not a chance. He created that himself. I don't think Gordon could do that. So for me, Barnes starts over Gordon, and Gordon has to fight his way into the team, because I've been really disappointed. And I love him, but I need to see more. I really do.
Absolutely. We do. I think we all agree on that one. We definitely need to see more. As we're on that question of we need to see more, do we need to see more from this man? Because that has been a question around lots of Newcastle United fans after the game on Sunday, some of which want Eddie Howe gone. They're already looking at other managers, some sections of the fan base. They want him gone. They feel that he's gone as far as he can. Last night on Top Table Talk, we had opposition fans mentioning and asking us the question, has Eddie Howe taken us as far as he possibly can? We've got a tough run coming up, boys. Back after the internationals, we've got Man City, away at Marseille. Lee will definitely be able to tell us a little bit more about that one. Everton away at their new stadium, not got a great record at Goodison previously anyway. And then we've got home games against Tottenham and Burnley. Boys, I'll open up the floor. Whoever wants to kind of chip in with this one. has Eddie Howe taken us as far as we can? Do you think that this small section of the Newcastle United fan base are going over the top on this? Is it too early to be questioning Eddie Howe on his managerial future at Newcastle United? I'll open up the floor to anybody. What's your thoughts on those points?
I think Howe has so much credit in the bank, and I don't think question marks over his future are even remotely sensible. I don't at all. The away forms are good enough. Yeah, no problem at all. But equally, Newcastle have still won 6 of their last 9 games in all comps. In the quarterfinals of the Carabao Cup, which we won last year, Champions League was 6th in the group table. That it's not a crisis. It's just the away form is the problem, and it is an issue. No one's saying it's not an issue. No one's saying Howe's not made mistakes with this. But for anyone to even think he's taken us as far as he can, or to question him, it's just wrong, because this man has proven time and time again that even when Newcastle struggle, he finds a way, he fixes things, he gets it done. He had a really disruptive summer. Ultimately, a lot of signings were made late. Malik Chow's the only one who's really come in, and, well, Walter as well, but Malik Chow and Walter, 2 signings who've come in and made the real impact. We're still waiting on Ramsey, we're still waiting on Alanga. We haven't even seen you on Vissa yet. Yeah. So I really feel as if any talk over him potentially losing his job is truly ridiculous.
Lee, we've been here before with managers. We've had conversations back in the 90s around Kevin Keegan. We were there last game of Sir Bobby Robson's era away at Villa. We've seen it through many other managers. We've spoke about it through the likes of Rafa Benitez, Adam Pardew. I was about to say Adam Partridge then. Same thing. And then we've talked many a times, and you've heard me rant many a times around Steve Bruce. As manager of Newcastle United. I know Jack's shaking his head. We all are. Look, Lee, is it a case of going over the top? Is it a case of that Newcastle United fans do this sometimes, don't they? They get really kind of demanding and expecting in certain situations. Is that the case now with Eddie Howe? Like, what's your thoughts on this? On Eddie Howe?
It's not just Newcastle fans; it's football fans, right? I just feel that a lot of it's born out of frustration because Newcastle cannot advance in this project right at the pace and the speed that they want to. They want to attract the best players. They want to be, fighting for titles. You don't want to rest on your laurels of winning a Carabao Cup, and it's difficult. Yes, there's issues with the away form. Yes, there's issues with injury, and I'm sorry to bring it up, but losing Alexander Isak was absolutely ginormous to the way Newcastle play. And you can talk about the signings that have come in, and okay, it's not hit off for Alanga yet, and Tamada's going to need time, and etc., and Gordon's not in form. I honestly believe if Isak was still there, that table would be looking very, very different. And I'm sorry, I know you probably have discussed Isak to death on this channel, right? But I need you to understand is that the impact of that is huge. That's going to take time. Like, it's going to take time for him to bed in at Liverpool. And I remember saying to you before you even went, Pete, that I didn't think it was the right move for him. Right, I thought it was a poor move for him actually, and but anyway, that I'm digressing a little bit, but I think it's a little over the top. There's sometimes it's perfect fits, and within those perfect fits, it's like a marriage. It's not always perfect. There's going to be times where you're going to go through tumultuous periods and things are not going to go perfectly. I look at it as in Atletico Madrid and Simeone. They've been like a marriage for so long now, and they've had their ups and downs, but ultimately they know that he is the perfect fit for that football club. I see the same here with Eddie Howe. I just feel like it's more than what he does in the changing room and the training pitch. The way he's united the city, everything that he's done at that football club and for that city has just been absolutely miraculous. From picking up a team in a relegation zone. And let's be honest, we can talk about the ownership, we can talk about money, but there's not been like loads and loads of money been pumped in because there's so many restrictions around financial fair play. But what he's done is, well, he's improved players no end. And I think we forget about what he's done because we're seeing Newcastle elevated now to winning trophies, to playing in the top tier of European football. We forget about what he's done with people like Joe Linton. We forget about what he's done in attracting people like Sandro Tonali, Bruno Guimaraes, even bringing Isak in, Gordon. Well, these players want to play for him. He's not lost the dressing room. It's just a moment where it's just a little bit tumultuous. And as I said, I don't think this is going to continue. I think Newcastle are going to only get better from here. They're going to get themselves up the table. And I still think they'll be challenging for Europe at the end of the season. But I think fans just in general can be really, really hasty. If you get rid of him, who do you bring in? Who do you bring in that's going to unite that team, that city, that club? Right, I don't know. I mean, I'll throw that out to you guys. Who comes in to replace Eddie Howe that can pick that team up and take it to the next level? I heard people talking about Mourinho before he took the Benfica job. No chance. No chance he does what Eddie Howe did and picks up his work and continues that great work. He couldn't do it with Pochettino. And they've just been to a Champions League final at Tottenham. He struggled there. It didn't work out for him. I don't know. I don't know who picks. I don't know who picks it up for Newcastle. I think the right man's in charge, right? And I just think that it's just going to take time. It's going to take time with Newcastle. But again, I agree with you all. Some work needs to be done in that away form. But Newcastle are the type of team that can win a game and then build on it and start to get a succession of wins, and then what comes with that becomes a habit. You build momentum, and before you know it, you're in the running again. But yeah, I don't subscribe to it. I think the right man is at the helm.
Yeah, the right man is at the helm now, and he has past form in implementing a change. I don't know what happens if we were to lose the next 7, including the derby, or I don't know what happens if we continue to kind of hot and cold and our away form can't win away all season and see how we get on in the cups. Then is there a decision to be made in the summer? Is it at least look at options in the summer? I don't know. You mentioned who might be options that people talk about, Iola and Glasner. But they're not like they've done really well in the Premier League. But Eddie Howe has a lot of history and pedigree to date, so he deserves a chance to see it out at least to the summer, you would imagine.
That's what I mean. You make the point there of what if he loses next 7? What if you lose to Sunderland? But what if you lose to Sunderland? What if you lose the next 6 or 7 games? But you're in the top 8 for the Champions League and you avoid the playoff round and you're absolutely cooking in the Champions League. You go away, you win it, or you win against PSV, you win in Marseille, you win at PSG, or you get a point there, whatever it is. Like going back to what Jack said, he's got a bit of money in the bank, hasn't he, really? And you have to kind of see it through. I think he's earned that right. But then, again, if Newcastle were to drop out of the Champions League at an earlier stage and, there's no cup run, it ends in the quarterfinal of the Carabao, there's no FA Cup run, they finish outside, let's say, out 9th or 10th in the Premier League, maybe there is a conversation to be had then. But for now, I think it's just a little hasty. I mean, it's still fairly early in the season, and we're not at the business end yet. And there's a lot of teams that are not quite up to scratch yet. Nobody's, with exception. Okay, you could say Arsenal are doing all right, great. Points record looks great. Statistics look great. They're not playing scintillating football, but they're getting wins, and maybe that's enough. But there's nobody out there that's even across Europe. Okay, you could probably put aside a Bayern Munich. Real Madrid are not firing all cylinders. PSG are not firing all cylinders. Liverpool are. Nobody really is. So I think give it time. And when we get to the business end of the season, I think that will I think there's a conversation to be had then.
We've got to remind ourselves of Villa as well, haven't we? Because 4, 5, 6 weeks ago we were looking at Villa and laughing, weren't we, going, oh bloody hell, Villa are in the mud, they're going to be in trouble. And all of a sudden you look at the league table now and you go, bloody hell, where did Villa come from? But that's obviously because they've got that 3, 4, 5 games in a row managed to win them consecutively, and then they go and beat a very, very good Bournemouth side 4-0, and all of a sudden everything's looking rosy, isn't it? And you look at Villa now and you think, oh, I'd love to swap places with them. So I suppose it is very, very early days. I suppose my biggest concern is, the noise. Pete, you mentioned about the small section of the fan base and the noise getting louder and louder, and that's what concerns me. And I look at those fixtures that you flashed up before, Daz, and Marseille aside, because we are doing very, very well in the Champions League. I look at City, I look at Burnley, I look at Everton, and I think if we continue in the form that we are at the moment, because it's not just the fact that we're not getting the results, it's the fact that we're not playing well either. And I don't think Eddie Howe helped his cause in the last game, as you mentioned earlier, Jack, when with basic things like, Dan Burn giving away a penalty, then it gets overturned and we're all screaming, going, get him off, he's on a yellow, get him off, he's on a yellow, and then he keeps him on the pitch. And then, Pete, you mentioned, didn't you, the camera panned over to the touchline as Dan Burn's been sent off, and all the subs are lined up ready to come on, and you think, where was that 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 minutes ago? Why have you done it now? So I think little mistakes like that don't help with cause either.
And it's the fact that they keep happening. What we want is that, look, managers make mistakes, players make mistakes. We know this, but it's where they keep happening. So whenever we have a disappointing result, like for example with West Ham, like we knew the game was done because certain subs get made at certain times. When you see the likes of Asula coming on, where you see Willett coming on, for example. When Willett came on, it is part of that quadruple sub. Like, I knew the game was done at that point. Eddie Howe's only bringing him on the pitch because he's giving him minutes, not because he believes that he's going to turn the game around. No disrespect to Joe Willett, but that's just the way he is right now and where he currently fits in this squad. And I want to see something different from a manager. I said it on Sunday. I want to see something different, whether it's a different style of play, whether it's a different approach to set up this team in order to get results. For me, like, I've not seen Newcastle United play well for a while. No. The only time I've seen Newcastle United play well in the Premier League was against Liverpool, and we still lost that game. And it was probably only when we were down to 10 men that I thought, that's my Newcastle United. There's my intensity. There's my high press team. And we were doing that with 10 men. I haven't seen that in the Premier League other than that game. And that's the bit that worries me. And that's the bit that I identify with this Eddie Howe Newcastle United team. And I want to see that back. I want to see that. I know for a fact we'll get that against Man City because we're at St. James's Park and it's a big game against a big team. I want to see that going away to Everton. I want to see that at home to Burnley, because I tell you what, and it frustrates me. I feel like we play a certain way against certain teams. If we go and play like that against Burnley, we will wipe the floor with them. If we go and play like that against Tottenham, we will beat them again at St. James's Park for the umpteenth time. Like, we will go and do that. And I just feel like I'm missing seeing that all-action, intense Newcastle United team. And it feels like to me, and Joe Linton's a prime example of that, because that's his game and that's what he's built off. I feel like some of the players are missing that too. I feel like Bruno hasn't really had his most scintillating form because he's all action too. He's all action, all press. He likes to get about the pitch. Joe Linton, and we talked about why that midfield's not performing as well. I think that's part of the reason. I think Anthony Elanga in an all action, high press, high intensity team, I think Anthony Elanga becomes a better player. He'll start winning balls higher up the pitch. We'll be attacking more. We'll be in the attacking end where he can go and drive at players and cause problems. I think we'll see a much better team, and more so than anything, it takes pressure off our defence, because our defence is having to do so much and play so well to keep us in games, and that shouldn't be the case with this Newcastle team. We spent a lot of money. This squad is the best squad I've seen since Eddie Howe took over, since this takeover happened. This squad of players, the first 11, take Isaac away, may not be there, but this squad of players are. We've got 2 players for every position, and these players are better than what they were, than what we had previously. So there is positives there. But look, I want to see something different. But I hear it. I hear what both yourselves, Jack, and what Lee is saying about Eddie Howe. And we have to remember, there are lots of loud noises from a small section of the fan base, but they are always the loudest. The ones that are very much Eddie Howe, we feel he can do the business and turn it around. They don't have to shout that from the rooftops because that's just what we believe and we going about our business. The one thing I'll just say on that is that we do have to remember what Newcastle United have done. We don't want to have a down season at Newcastle United, but we are allowed one. It happens. No team is always up there. You only have to look at Man City last season to see their big dip. Now they look like they're on the trajectory back up again. Every team has it at some point, and it feels like we're kind of having that now at this moment. And it's a case of whether we can come out of it. And the one thing we need to remember, and I saw this on social, so I thought I'd put it up here, is this. Since Eddie Howe's appointment, Newcastle United are fourth in that table of the the amount of points that we've accumulated. So we have to remember where we've come from as well. You know, we've got more points than Chelsea in the last 4 years, Tottenham, Man United, those teams that have been kind of lauded and pushed as these big top teams. Aston Villa get all the plaudits, but we've got 5 more points than them, and they've been flying recently, but we've still got more points than them. You know, you look at that and you think, actually, are we in a bad position? Is Eddie Howe doing such a bad job? There's lots of different opinions. There's people in the chat that have got different opinions. I think Mr. Monson is very much Howe out and is putting the comments about making excuses, various different excuses for Eddie Howe still being in the job. That's your opinion, fair enough. But I do think there's still credit in the bank. There is definitely no pressure on Eddie Howe's job from my perspective. But for me, there is pressure on him getting results because we need results quickly because the gap is going to build if we don't get those points very, very quickly. So, look, this Eddie Howe conversation will rumble on, but it was good to get different people's perspective on it. It's not going to stop. I feel like Eddie Howe outers have just been kind of like in the bushes, hiding away, not really
long
saying
grass. Yeah.
We're in the long grass, yes, waiting for that moment to strike. And these last 2 results have allowed the Howe outers to kind of be out and very vocal and very visible all over again. It tends to happen. If we put a few results together, it will disappear very, very quickly. I just want to give a shout out to a few people. Thank you for all your comments in the chat. I have been taking some little snapshots. So if you look like my head's down, I am keeping an eye on the chat. I'll take some snapshots because there is some questions for us all. Lee, there's some European questions there that we'll throw at you for them to show. And I need to give a shout out to David Cook because David Cook is on with us. Great to have you. He put a rare live this week. My father-in-law died, 92. So much to deal with. So condolences to you, David, and your family for your loss. Thank you for taking time to come and join us on Loaded Mag NUFC, and hopefully we can just take your mind off it, even just for an hour whilst we chat Newcastle United. So prayers to you, David, and thank you for your continued support. And while you're supporting there, click those likes, people. Click those likes. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and get your questions in for Jack and Lee, because we'll come to a question section in just a second. One topic I wanted to talk on, lads, very, very quickly, is the topic of this man, Sandro Tonali. In the last week, there's been some comments he made. I think it was after the Bilbao game that have got Newcastle fans stirring, mentioning about the fact that he doesn't want to commit and say that he's going to be here 5-10 years and then not be here. He wants to be honest and upfront with the club. He takes it on a year-to-year basis. Lots of noise around Sandro Tonali. What do you make of the Sandro Tonali situation, Jack? Are you worried about his future at Newcastle United? Do you see him here long term? And when I say long term, let's say the next couple of years, not too far ahead. Do you see him still playing for Newcastle United at that point? Well, where were you at with it all?
Yeah, so first of all, to the comments, I was fine with them, to be honest. He got asked a question, he answered it honestly. I've heard the point of view whereby he could have easily just said, I love Newcastle, etc., etc. He's done that a lot already. I think he's made it very clear how grateful he is to the club and how grateful he is to the fans. I don't think he needs to say it in every interview, to be honest. So I was fine with his answer. I think that footballers do look at it year on year. And if Newcastle aren't in the Champions League next season, I'm sure he might well consider a move away. Equally, he'll have a lot of years left in his contract still because he signed the secret extension. So Newcastle will be able to demand a massive fee. I don't feel we did say this about Isak, but I don't think he's going to go on strike tonight to force a move because I think it would ultimately come back to actually the way Newcastle dealt with it during his ban. To be honest, I feel like he wouldn't throw all that back in our faces and the club's face. I don't think he's that type of character whatsoever. So it more comes down to what Newcastle can do, and if they don't maybe get what they need in terms of Champions League, etc., and a massive offer comes in, then yes, he could go. If not, with that extension now signed, I can see him being here for another 2 years. Even if Newcastle didn't make it in Europe this season, I think he'd probably give it another year, and then maybe it'd be a bit different. But he's a world-class midfielder. He is easily one of the best midfielders in the Premier League. You know, when people talk about Caicedo, Rice, Gravenberch, I put him above Gravenberch, to be honest. I think he is that good. I think it's his consistency that sets him apart. However, I will say against West Ham and Brentford, he was poor, but there's probably the only 2 poor games he's had since he come into the team, you know, in December last year. So we're talking about a year whereby he's a 7 out of 10 minimum every game. I think Tottenham fans were talking about how good he was in the Carabao Cup game, and he was absolutely elite in that match. Yeah. And I just feel like his skill set is another level in terms of the way he keeps the ball, the way he is off the ball is insane. His pace, there's not many quicker centre midfielders than Sandro Tonali. He covers the ground, but he covers it rapidly. Bruno covers the ground, but Bruno kind of looks like he's running treacle, doesn't he? But he covers the ground. Tonali's a bit different. So it's one of those where it comes to him. I'm not worried about him leaving, but what we'll say is we're very lucky to have him. I massively enjoy watching a player like that, and I think all Newcastle fans do, and I think he appreciates the Newcastle love, and I just felt that with that one, he just answered it honestly. So yeah.
In comparison to the kind of European circuit, I know you obviously watch various European football league. What have you made of Sandro Tonali? Paul Scholes' comments, he rates him as probably the best midfielder in his opinion in the Premier League. They were his words. There's been lots of talk around Moise Caicedo and Declan Rice, and Sandro Tonali being this part of the same conversation, but maybe Sandro third in that. Just how good do you think Sandro Tonali is, and what do you think his future may look like with regards to Newcastle United?
First and foremost, I absolutely love watching him play. I think he's a brilliant player and a brilliant addition to the Premier League. I was a bit sceptical how he'd get on to begin with. It's and maybe I was slightly wrong to prejudge. Italian players coming from Serie A have not always settled brilliantly in the Premier League. It's completely different style of football and a completely different way of life. And usually they're clambering to go back home quite quickly. And there's been plenty of examples down the years. What he has done is, his English is very, very good. And I'm unsure whether he spoke English beforehand, but regardless, his English is good. I've watched a few of the documentaries actually that Newcastle have put out of him, kind of like almost fly on the wall things that they've done. And he's brilliant. He's really kind of, he's immersed himself into life within the city and the culture. And I think that's a really great thing. So from that perspective, that wasn't a case of, in his mind, of heading back to Italy straight away. However, on the flip side, I do think that next summer he is the most likeliest player to leave the club. I do think that after the ban, he owed Newcastle, and as Jack quite rightly said, he's a player that he's come out, he's thanked the club, he's showed so much gratitude, the way they've stuck behind him, but also the way that they've, I think they've elevated his game. He's been able to really kind of push on from his time at Milan. Milan have had all sorts of financial issues and all sorts of issues in general around the football club and the harmony around the football club. Newcastle offered him an escape route, and I think he's paid them back brilliantly, particularly in the last season and so far this season. And he'll always be remembered for being part of the team that won the Carabao Cup, and ended that 70-year trophy drought. I don't see him going back to Italy, though. I think he could leave. I don't think that's beyond the realms of possibility. I think he could go. I don't see him going back to Italy just purely because I don't think the finances are there in terms of what Newcastle will ask for him. A player, good age, in his prime, international. I could see him going elsewhere. I could see him going to, whether he'd go to another Premier League club, I don't know. But I could see Paris Saint-Germain looking at him actually, as a replacement for Fabian Ruiz. Now, Fabian Ruiz is 29 going on 30, and I think he'd be the perfect player to just sit there in between or just play in between João Neves, Vitinha. I think that would add so much class and quality to that midfield. There's a little bit of discussion as to whether PSG are going to continue with Fabian Ruiz. At the moment, he's got a little bit of elevation in terms of what he can offer. He's coming off a Champions League win as well, and there's been some links with him going back to Spain actually. And again, reading a lot of the French press, I know that, and speaking to a lot of fans, I know that he's very highly thought of at Paris Saint-Germain. Whether they would come in for a cheeky bid, I don't know, but they would certainly have the finances to do so. Finances are great at that club. I don't know if Newcastle would want to sell him if he did go to another Premier League club, not after the nonsense we had in the summer with Isak. They certainly won't want to be strengthening other clubs. But if he was to go, and Newcastle don't have to sell him, by the way, they're in a position. I'm not sure how long is his contract run for, because I'm sure Newcastle are in a good position, certainly
20,
from.
He extended it.
He's got 5 more years.
Yeah,
he's got 5 more years. So Newcastle are in a fantastic position.
Yeah.
They're in a fantastic position, aren't they? In terms of negotiating. If he turned around and said, "Look, I'd like to leave," but look, he's not in a bad place. He's at a great club where he's absolutely revered. But Champions League football is pretty much going to have to be a must if you're. If your top players are going to want to stay and fight for the club, there has to be something on the table, really, doesn't there, in terms of Champions League football? So, yeah. I believe that he would be the one that I could, out of the top players at the club, I could see him going the most.
Bro, me and you're going to fall out in a minute. You come onto the show and talking really well about Eddie Howe, and then you're trying to sell our boy to your boys for a cheeky bid. No, I don't want that happening. That can't happen.
Christmas will be interesting, boys.
It may not happen. It may not happen. But I have, again, from what I've read, from what I've seen, certainly in France, they are. It was, Bruno Guimaraes at one point was linked with PSG, but these Sandro Tonali rumours are not going away in the French press, and they've been there for a little while now. But doesn't mean it's going to happen, of course.
Oh, of course, and look, we hope that it doesn't happen. Look, we've been very vocal on Sandro Tonali, boys, so I won't ask us our opinion. I know we're coming close to time. Chris, I've seen in the private chat that you've managed to put some of the questions in with regards to people in the chat. And I've got a couple of things to throw Lee's way, European football related. So go for it.
Okay, so do you know what? I really like this question. I'm gonna give this one to Jack because it's interesting, and it's. I'm sorry I didn't make a note of who asked the question, but it's a very, very good question. So whoever you are, do disclose yourself. But the question was, Jack, is the press being saved for Vissa? Now, I've not even contemplated that. I've not even thought about that.
Yeah.
But do you think that's a possibility in terms of the way we play, and maybe Eddie Howe's looking, for that strike? I mean, Vissa, if you were to compare Vissa and Baltimore, Vissa is the closest thing to Isak, isn't he, compared to the two, because there's night and day. But do you think that's a fair comment, and do you think that's a possibility, Jack?
I think that is a really fair comment. I think with Waldemar as well, I think that ultimately he's never had to play this much senior football before ever. Last season he didn't even get into the team until the second half of the year where we were starting games. And he's basically been asked to just lead the line in every single match because this has been injured and then Asula got injured as well. So I feel like Waldemard's performances have dropped a little bit just because he's been a bit tired and leggy, to be honest. And I think Howe kind of hinted at that and said, I would have liked to have had options to rest him and just sort of don't. So that's where I'm with Waldemard. I think Visser 100% will change the way that we press in games because he is that sort of aggressive striker, wants to get in your face. I think Visser as well, the way that I'm not going to like condone what he did. The way he left Brentford wasn't on. It's like what he did. It's like what Isak did as well. So it's not on. What was strange about it though is that he was obsessed with joining Newcastle. Like, turned down Tottenham, whatever. He only wanted to join Newcastle. So I think when he comes back, he is going to be so determined to hit the ground running. And I'm sure he'll literally be running through brick walls for the team to try and make an impression because he is 29 now. We have to spend £55 million on him. Realistically, you're going to get 3 years maybe at the top level from him. So he's going to want to be doing everything he can. I do think that I would like to see Waldemar almost as a 10 and Visser up front. And I think that would sort of unlock a lot of attacking options because I think that would give Waldemar the space to start creating, which we've seen him be able to do. And also I think Visser would finally get some chances to put away. So that was a really good question. Whether it was really good, I do think Visser might change the off-ball tactics in certain games. But overall, I do think going back to what I said, it's about more of a style change anyway, how Newcastle are playing. So I don't think the press is going to be in every game. I just don't. But it needs to be at moments in games. And I think that's been the issue where we haven't been able to adapt and not because it's sort of Arsenal, Man City don't press all the time, but they do in the right moments. And we haven't been able to do that. So once we get that sorted, I'm sure we'll be fine.
Jack, just a follow-up question there. Do you think
go for it.
We should be so determined to do well at Newcastle that he will not make AFCON for Congo, asking on behalf of someone beside me here?
Right.
Ears pricked up.
I think he'll skip AFCON, yeah. I think he'll skip AFCON.
That's the right answer.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
No, I do. I think he'll want to just because, again, he'll just want to prove his worth to the club and, the fact that they chased him for the whole summer and, as I said, not condone what he did because it's not the right way to go about it. But ultimately, he only wanted Newcastle, essentially. So I can see him skipping AFCON, definitely.
I was ferociously looking for that Congo leader. I couldn't find him. I wanted to get the picture up. We also had a question for you as well, Lee, and this question came from Geordie Toon for Life, and it's around Isak, but I suppose it can be used more broadly as well. Geordie Toon for Life wants to know, in your opinion, Lee, do too many stars want the glory, and are they too selfish compared to the likes of players like Murphy, etc.?
Sorry, can you say that again, Chris, for me? Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, mate. So Geordie Toon for Life asks you on Alexander Isak specifically, that's who he's meaning, but you could probably use it more broadly as well. Do too many stars, in your opinion, want the glory, and they are selfish? They are selfish compared to the likes of players like, for example, Jacob Murphy, who's living the dream at Newcastle United, probably won't move on, albeit I'm sure he probably would make a step down if he was to move on. But do you think that players kind of think the grass is greener and then look to kind of, move on, and then maybe it doesn't always work out for them? Do you think there should be a bit more loyalty in football?
I think it depends who you're talking to in terms of what type of player. If you're talking to someone like, if you look at somebody like Dan Burn, whose dream was probably to what he's doing now, really. But then you've got someone like Alexander Isak. He's got no, he's got no connection to Newcastle United. He's got an agent in his ear telling him how wonderful he is. He reads the press every day telling him that he's the best striker in the world. Then he looks at his wages and looks at what other strikers are earning, sees himself as the top scorer, and says his agent's telling him, well, hold on. If your Tat is the best player in best striker in the Europe or the Premier League or the world. Let's have a contract that best fits. That kind of narrative. But at the end of the day, is that some players will look at their careers as short and the opportunity to play.
Sorry.
Thanks,
Top
Jack.
man.
Cheers, Jack.
Cheers, Jack.
See you later, Jack.
See you next time, Jack.
So some players will see, the opportunity see the stars, see the opportunity to win the biggest and best honours, and ultimately do what they can to, to force that move through. But I think that the biggest factor is the people that are around them. It's like with anything, whether it's family, friends, or whatever. You're highly influenced by those people close to you. And at heart, a lot of the time, unfortunately, these players are either badly advised or advised to make moves that lack integrity, based on financial decisions or on the say-so of people that are also going to benefit from it. So, look, who are we to tell anybody what to do with their career, what to do with their careers, and what the best move is for them? Ultimately, as fans, and it doesn't matter, just generalizing as fans, we want players to feel the way we feel about our football clubs. That's not always going to be the case, and I think we have to understand that. And it's so easy for us to sit here and go, oh no, when you hear these links, well, this player's not going to go and that player's not going to go. No, he's come out, he said he loves the club. I think if anything's come from this Alexander Isak situation, I think it's a realization as fans now that, look, we have to take that stuff with a pinch of salt now. Let's not buy into too much of what he said, even from the players, and just take each season as it comes, because ultimately, football is a short career for these guys, and it's a job. It's a job, and when their careers are over, it's still going to be here, aren't we? As fans, we're still here. We'll still be supporting the club when we're all, on our last legs. So, yeah, the game's changed. The way we look at football's changed. As fans, our access to players have changed. When we was growing up, we'd be able to go down to a training ground, get a snap with a player, and integrate with players and stuff like that. It's gone now. These guys are on a different stratosphere. So, trying to tap into their minds and on what they're thinking it's just pointless. The fan has never been further away from the player in terms of thinking, in terms of in terms of love, in terms of attachment. We've never been further separated from footballers than we are in this current day and age.
Yeah, so true, mate. So true. And Pete, you were saying the same, weren't you? Alexander Isak's almost kind of our baptism of fire. Like we will have to get used to this. We haven't. Well, I can't even remember the last time we sold a player and we were all absolutely devastated because it doesn't really happen to us. Yeah, maybe Andy Carroll, maybe Johan Cabaye, maybe. But yeah, you've got to. I suppose you've got to just get used to things, haven't you? And you're rightly, people have many reasons for wanting to move on, don't they? And I suppose as fans, we've just got to accept it and just keep supporting the club. Yeah.
When you become a good team, the top players want your good players. It's as simple as that. And I think that's what we've really struggled with. We've really struggled with that transition, because when we were under Steve Bruce and Mike Ashley, nobody really wanted our top players. And that was just the reality. They didn't like, and now they do, because we're doing well. And these top teams, they look at us going up and they go, oh, we don't want them to get any better. So let's pluck their best player out and let's take them away and make them rebuild again. And that's ultimately what we're doing right now. And it's hard for us to think like that. But this is why I say I kind of like having to think last couple of days is that, is this kind of our down moment while we kind of rebuild and go again? Is this what like Man City have done? Like, is this what other teams have done in years gone by? Chelsea had it for 2 years. Chelsea finished in the bottom half 1 year and then finished out of the European positions the year after, and now look, their last couple of years they've started. But every team does it, and this is the thing that we've got to kind of remember. Got just a couple of things before we wrap, Lee, and let you go. And I know we'll try and keep you to time. There's one question. Don't know if you got this one, Chris, from Dale. He put questions for Lee. How good is Boadi? I know we've talked about it.
Lille, yeah. Lille.
Will he probably
26?
Yes. Wonder Kid. Will he probably end up at Brighton to replace Baliba when sold for 100 million in 3 years?
Brighton will do very well to get him. Lille are not going to let him go for cheap. I can tell you that now. Again, Lille are not a Rennes. Lille are not a Lyon or some, or so forth. Lille have got a great youth system, and they unearth some really good talents. It's generally across the board in France. They have to They have to focus on their youth system because they don't have the broadcasting money that the Premier League has. So it's really, really important that they give their youth a chance and use their systems well, and they do use it very, very well. This is a guy who was man of the match against Real Madrid in his first Champions League game last season. He was brilliant. Again, very, very young, very raw, but absolutely got the world at his feet. You know what? I know I'm hyping him up a lot here, and if he was ever listening to this, he probably wouldn't thank me. But he is a wonderfully gifted midfielder. He's got a fantastic future ahead of him. He's got a great turn of pace. He's so comfortable on the ball. His eye for an assist is outrageous for his age. I think he's 17, 18 now.
Yeah.
Look, he's going to be a star if he continues on the same trajectory. I think a move, the question kind of spoke about Brighton. I think that would be actually a really good first move for him where he can develop, he can take his time to develop, get used to, the rigors of Premier League football. So yeah, I think that would be a really good move for him. But whoever gets him, again, as long as they nurture him, build him into the team, be patient with him. I think there's a real player there for the future. And again, another young Frenchman that's just, this production line is just never ending over there. So yeah, he's really great. And anybody who's listening to this, if you've not watched him, certainly keep an eye out for him because he's definitely a star of the future.
Definitely. And just sticking with another club you just mentioned, Rennes, who also produced a lot of top-level young talent. Genie Esther's asked the question, Rennes keep producing incredible talents. Do you think Maite, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Dejoui, Cisse, and Jacquet, and Jacquet as well, would be a good fit for Newcastle United, either one of those?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, again, these are young talents that are coming through, and there's so many of them. But Rennes have got money. Rennes have got money, and there is no, they're in no rush to kind of sell their youth talents. That's why they kept Desiree Doué for 2 or 3 seasons before he went on to PSG. They've got no kind of rush to offload for financial reasons, just because their owners are some of the richest owners certainly in French football, besides PSG. Rennes a good place to develop. Rennes a good place to for them to develop even further. And I think 1 or 2 more years. 1 or 2 more years, and I think, maybe from that perspective, that might be a good time to move. I don't think, again, we've got a lot of players in France that their dream is to come to play in the Premier League, and that's their dream even before they've stepped onto a foot in professional football in France. But, there's been quite a few examples of some of these players that have moved too early, and I think that it's important with certainly a club like Rennes, who does often get European football, not this season, but does often get European football, is that they don't move too quickly and kind of hamper their progress and end up sitting on the bench. And, obviously their development is then really, really hampered in that way. So I think having good people, we spoke about it earlier, having good people around them, good people to advise them is really, really important. But as I said, just the talent at Rennes, the talent at places like Lyon, who are also brilliant at developing players. PSG now are getting a lot better. They're focusing on their youth system a lot more, and the talent coming out of that country is just insane. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, keep an eye on French football. It's the most scouted league in Europe, and it is for a reason.
And you obviously scour that league because you're watching PSG, you watch various other games. And the last thing I'm going to ask you before I let you go, Newcastle United definitely need to go into the transfer market to invest in the next couple of windows. I asked you to kind of think about maybe a few players that are playing well in French football at this moment in time. And you came back with a few of them. So there was a young lad at Paris FC. I don't know if you want to talk about him. Let the viewers know who he is.
Yeah,
what he's all
he's a
about.
good guy. I mean, look, French football's really hard to watch at the moment, just purely because it's on a kind of subscription basis now. And let's be honest, with the amount of subscriptions that everybody's got watching football now, it's really, really difficult to to kind of bring in and say, right, I'm going to pay a tenner a month to watch League One, because people are not going to do it, especially in the UK. So it's good that we get this platform here to kind of highlight some of these players. This guy here is called Ilan Cabal. He plays for Paris FC, newly promoted. They're 11th in the table, and this guy has been absolutely brilliant. He's played in the lower leagues for his whole career. He's 27. He's a winger. He's played in the lower leagues for all his career. This is his first few months playing top flight football, and he's been fantastic. He has scored 12 goals. Sorry, he's played 12 games. He's scored 5 goals, made 4 assists this season, and been a real key reason as to why Paris FC have made a really solid start to their first season in Liga. And he's just earned a call up to the Algeria squad, so he'll be off to AFCON this summer. But someone to keep an eye on. Bit of a late bloomer. He's 27, but he's a bit of a late bloomer, but lots of ability. And he's a really interesting player to watch.
Another one that you highlighted this time from Lon, another Fofana.
Yes.
Ryan Fofana this
Yes,
time.
another-
We like
another-
Fofanas.
Another
We like
Lons linked,
Fofanas.
another Lons linked Fofana. Definitely not Seko. This guy's Ryan Fofana. He's 19. He's a centre forward. This is his breakout season. This is his first season in Ligue 1, but he's been really, really good. Again, a lot of raw talent. He's a big old chap. He's 6'1", puts himself about, good in the air, great with his feet, and a real danger. He's one of those who kind of play on the shoulder, will be a bit of a menace. But he's not been overawed by his first season in Ligue 1, a very physical league like the Premier League, and he's really put himself about this season. Lens are doing great. They're third in Ligue 1. They're doing fantastic this season. Just the joint second, same points as Marseille, and only 2 points behind PSG. 2 goals and 1 assist so far, but again, it's just more than the goals is just general all-round ability. But again, someone worth keeping an eye on.
Okay, a couple more that you've highlighted. Another one from France, this time from Strasbourg, and I need to pronounce this name correctly. Is it Joaquin Panicelli?
Yes. Go on.
Yeah.
You've done well there. Joaquin Panicelli, 23-year-old Argentine striker. He signed this summer for Strasbourg, so he works under Leon Messina. He's doing a wonderful job there, 4th in the table. He is Ligue 1's top scorer right now, 9 goals from 12 games. Scored a double at the Parc des Princes against Paris Saint-Germain. Absolutely ran the PSG defence ragged in the game last month. Brilliant 3-3 draw. Really unlucky not to be on the winning side. Obviously, he's part of Strasbourg, so under the umbrella of Blueco. So naturally, Chelsea will be having a little sniff around this. He's been fantastic, and he, as I said, came in the summer. He's been linked actually with Barcelona. Barcelona have been taking a look at this guy as a potential cut price replacement for Robert Lewandowski. We know there's some links with Harry Kane and Barcelona and so on and so forth. But this is one guy that they are looking at as well. And he's worth a look if you haven't seen him. He's great in the air. He's a big old chap, good in the air, great with his feet. First instinct is to shoot. Gets the ball turned, shoot. He's dangerous, really good natural finisher. And he's kind of just come out of nowhere. He spent a little bit of time. I think he was in the youth system at River Plate in Argentina, and then he came over to Spain, and he was with Alaves for a couple of seasons, and then moved to Strasbourg in the summer. But unfortunately, Chelsea will be having their eyes all over this guy, I'm sure. So, but yeah, definitely worth letting the masses know about this guy, a very up-and-coming, promising striker.
Absolutely, one to keep an eye on. And lastly, we have someone from a different league, and now we've talked about this player before because he's been linked with Newcastle United previously. Ismail Sabari, if I'm pronouncing that right.
You have. You doing all right tonight?
Yeah.
I'm giving you a few tricky names here, and you've done all right. So midfielder, winger, can play in the middle, can play out wide. He's been brilliant. You may have seen him in the Champions League, but you definitely get an up-close look at him because I think you guys have got PSV in January, haven't you? Yeah. So you definitely get a look at him there. Obviously, if he plays then. Born in Spain, but he's Moroccan. So again, another player that will be part of this amazing golden generation of Moroccan football that's probably going to go on and win the AFCON in their home country this summer. And obviously an opportunity for him on the world stage next year because they've obviously qualified for the World Cup as well. He's again just been brilliant. He scored 2 goals out of 4 games in the Champions League. Pacey, can finish, puts himself about really, really well. Fantastic skill. He's got everything that you would need. He's played his whole entire career, actually, despite being born in Spain and being a Moroccan nationality. He's played his entire career in the Netherlands, which is strange, but it's worked out that way. 17 games this season, 10 goals, 2 assists, 2 goals in the Champions League, and again, probably a bit easier to see him play because you'll be able to see PSV playing the Champions League, bit easier access to catch this guy. But he's been in great form this season and certainly want to keep an eye on as well as the other 3 that we've mentioned.
Cool.
As always, when we get Leon, we always ask him to dig deep into his little black book of talents to keep an eye on.
Last question for Lee.
Go on.
Last question, right? Because people in the chat didn't realize that Lee is Pete's brother. But my question to you, Lee, is have you got to sample Davey's Den yet and the new extension? Because we've been hearing all about it, but have you got to sample
it right now?
Yeah, I've been. Yeah, I've been in.
Oh, you've been?
Yeah, I've been there, yeah. Yeah,
not the other side of the room, are you?
It's great. No. I tell you what, I need one of them myself. I'm telling you, what I would do for one of them just to shut the door. I'd have a big 3 locks on it though, and just soundproof, and a little fridge in there. Oh, I tell you what, it's brilliant. It's great. I'd love it. I'd love one of them.
Fridge. Yes.
There you go.
Get yourself a fridge in there. Get yourself a fridge. Soundproof it off. Lock the door. Absolutely. Yeah, it's great. By the way, really brilliant. Absolutely. I'm so jealous. It's like his little man cave. It's great.
Yeah, we'll next time you come over, we'll get some 3 o'clock kickoffs. Legal means, of course. Legal means.
Of course.
We'll chill.
Always.
Lee, we're going to let you go because you've been a little bit over than we anticipated.
No worries. Thanks for having me, guys. It's been a pleasure.
Just give people a chance to plug your account, your YouTube channel. I know you've been putting a lot of European stuff on there, just building it up. So just give people
just a blueprint. It's on YouTube, guys. It's on on Instagram as well, TikTok, and all those things. I'm just getting used to all of that. But yeah, just my take on European football, players that you might basically videos on players that you might not know about. A little bit like what we've done today. I'll do some European previews, games that I feel you should watch and why. Sometimes I do some reviews, keep you up to date with some of the news that's going on across Europe that you might not hear about. And I'll be going out and about in the new year. I'll be going to some matches abroad. I'll be hopefully interviewing in the mix zone some players. Just waiting for my journalist press pass to come through. And it's taken a while to come through, but hopefully that'll be ready for the new year and it should get a little bit up and close with some of the players on the continent. So yeah, we're looking to build that. So hopefully it'll be some good content. And I'm hoping to get up to St. James's and get in the mix zone and hopefully get a few interviews up there. That would be great as well at some point soon.
Great, cool.
Absolutely.
If you're looking for the link, we couldn't hyperlink it because YouTube wouldn't let us. But it's just in the show description, just a little bit down. You'll see it. Just link straight into Lee's channel. So go give him a sub.
Cheers, guys.
Pleasure as always. We'll let you go, let you enjoy your
evening.
Cheers,
guys. Thanks for having me. Great to see you all. And just do me one favour. Wipe the floor with Marseille. Wipe the floor with Marseille. Please. 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 Thank you.
Do our best.
Take care, guys. See you soon.
Thank you.
Great stuff. Great to have Leon and great to have Jack on as well. Brilliant guests to have. Who knew that having bad form and being an international break could be still enjoyable to have such a great conversation about football as well. Turpy, just to let you know, no, I don't put the brandy in the fridge. No, that doesn't happen. What I do is keep the waters in the fridge, and then the old mixer. I put the mixer in the fridge to keep that nice and cool, and of course, just to put it on a nice little chill. But yeah, great questions, people in the chat. Sorry that the comments weren't up tonight. YouTube doing its YouTube thing. It'll be fixed, no doubt, by the time we're on again. That is for sure. We've got something to go with before we leave, don't we? Do we have to?
Yes,
we have to use a big spinny wheel.
A big spinny wheel. We do. So how are we going to do this, boys? Because we didn't get much time to chat about this. So we have a prize to give away via Pete Graves. So Pete, you want to tell us about the prize, and then we'll try and come up with a way of how we give it away.
Yeah, a friend of the channel, Pete Graves, Sky Sports. He is always very, very supportive of the channel, and we are very supportive of him. And he messaged us and mentioned that this fantastic event next week, Wednesday, the 19th of November, has 3 legends of the club: Warren Barton, Stuart Pearce, and of course our current right back, Kieran Trippier, all in one show together at the Tyne Theatre and Opera House. Pete Graves hosting the show, and Pete Graves has quite nicely put forward 2 free tickets for that event and given them to Loaded Mag NUFC. So we're giving you the opportunity to win those tickets. Now, of course, it is on a Wednesday night, so thinking about travel, thinking about your locality to be able to get to that event is really, really important. So we always like to put it out to our members, and always like to get the spinning wheel out, don't we, lads? We do. An opportunity.
So this is our first run at it. So, but we need to kind of find the winner here as quickly as possible, because if we can't find the winner, and or they can't go, or else they could even live in a different country and then it's not possible to go, then we need to spin again or come up with a different method. So that's what we think we'll start it early and try this at least, boys. So let me get the wheel on stage, because I see it spinning here in the background. Here it is. Okay, so we have 119 members in on the wheel here, including us as well. But we'll spin again if it's us. So ready to go?
Let's go.
Let's go.
Best of luck. I love the spinny wheel.
Spinny wheel's the best, isn't it?
Paul Andrews is the winner. Congratulations, Paul.
Congratulations, Paul. So,
Paul, if you are watching this show now, or if you are watching on playback or listening on Spotify or any other audio means, get in touch with us. Get in touch with us quick, because we'll have to kind of set a deadline on getting back. Or we might even have know Paul from our Twitter or something as well. We'll have a look there as well. But maybe we need to set a deadline of what day is today? Wednesday. Friday. Let's go Friday, and then maybe our next show we'll have to do something else if we can't locate Paul. So we need to get in contact with us, Paul, before close of business Friday.
Can I ask? Oh, sorry, Pete. Go on, mate.
No, Paul. No, go for it.
No, I was just going to say, I'm just wondering, is it worth asking people in the chat? Obviously, we mentioned earlier that we haven't got access to the chat at the moment. We are watching on our phones at the chat, but I'm just wondering, is it worth having maybe a little backup list? So if there's anybody in the chat who is Newcastle-based, anybody who would be, more than happy to go and be wined and dined by Pete Graves and those 3 fantastic defenders, do let us know, because if Paul does not get in touch by midday on Friday to claim his tickets, we could end up approaching one of yourselves in the chat. So
good idea.
We can keep a note of your names. So anybody who's available, just remind me of the date again. Sorry.
Wednesday the 19th.
Right. So got to be available Wednesday, on the evening of Wednesday the 19th. And as the lads have said, courtesy of Pete Graves, very, very generous, good friends of the channel, has given us those 2 tickets. And yeah, but boys, when was the last time that there was like a talking with a current player? Yeah. Very, very, very rare, that, isn't it? Yeah. Very rare.
I was going to suggest something similar, Chris, actually, to what you mentioned, because you obviously with the backup list. I was actually going to say, should we draw a backup winner? So if Paul doesn't come forward, then the backup potentially, especially if they're in the chat tonight, they could potentially come forward and be that backup. But it's completely up to the chat and us, really.
Well, somebody in the chat there, Foxy has said Sophie deserves to win for being a great mod and for the work that she does. And Sophie has said, if I'm not at work, I would definitely go. I've just added on definitely go. I don't know why, but Sophie has said that she would go. So Sophie, if that's the case, we can obviously get in touch with you on Friday at midday if we do not hear from Paul.
Yeah.
And sorry, Pete, was it 1 ticket or 2 tickets?
Two tickets. So it can be a +1. And just to confirm, as it says right at the top, it is Wednesday, the 19th of November, not December. Sorry. I think people wanted to confuse in the chat. I don't know if we said December or not. I'm not sure, but it is definitely November. So next week. It is next week. So just to be clear on that.
So, Paul, you have until Friday, into Friday, or else we have to give it away, I'm afraid. Yeah, that's it. Cool.
Brilliant.
Brilliant stuff. And anybody
listening back or anybody watching this back, if you are able to go, drop us a DM and let us know. We can have a backup list, because I know Sophie said there that potentially we could invite Tapey as well. Sophie said she's going to find out her work schedule, but if I can't, Tapey, it's all yours. So Tapey also is on our list. So Tapey, if you could make it 2, that would be great. We just want to make sure that we get 2 people going to that fantastic event. That's what we want.
Cool. Absolutely. One last thing is breaking news in the last half an hour. Newcastle United will be hosting 5 matches at Euro 2028. UEFA have confirmed that tonight. So 4 group games on the 12th of the 6th, 15th of the 6th, 17th of the 6th, and the 20th of the 6th. Plus 1 last 16 game as well on the 25th. So 5 matches as part of obviously I think it would be in multiple venues. Newcastle United has been chosen, so that's just something that's popped up. Dominic Skir's put it on there, as well as many others have talked about it too. So great to see Newcastle on the map for big events and big sort of international competitions there. So just throwing that out there, people.
Fantastic.
Cool. Right, that is it. Let's bring the show to a close.
Ooh,
thanks again to. Yeah.
Sorry, just one thing, mate. You put up a poll earlier, didn't you?
Oh, I did put up what did you say? A poll? Paul?
Oh, I say Paul. Is it Paul?
Let me see. Can I get back to it? Yes, I can. Can I end it? Yes. Okay. So, and I'll read it out as it's still live. There was a question there was a comment in the chat to put up a poll. So I put up a poll. I know I left it vague, but there was a reason to leave it vague. And the question was, where do you sit? How out or how stays? 39% said how out. 61% said how stays.
Okay, interesting.
That is the stats really. 2/3 really nearly how stays, and 1/3 how out. Interesting. Important.
Yeah, there's still obviously lots of support there from people that view this channel. So let's wait and see. Everyone's views and opinions welcome. We'll continue to talk about how Newcastle United and results as we go along. And look, we will be back for more, that's for sure, on Loaded Mag NUFC. When that will be and where that will be, who knows? But make sure you've got that notification bell on, because we might pop up at any time, any place, any day, anywhere.
Except in Congo. We will not be in Congo. Right. That is it. Hype as well. To go back and hype the previous shows, people, get your hype button in for that. That is hyper. Right. See you in the next one. Good night.